morning, class. It's so good to see you. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Now we are trucking on along through our week and I hope everything's going smoothly for you. Everything's balanced. You're feeling good. You're in that wonderful soul zone where things are just rolling. You're creating, you're exploring, you're experimenting. You're doing all of those wonderful scientific processes to explore any subject that is fascinating you right now. Those rabbit holes are nice and clean. I hope that you're traveling through the Warren with a monorail right now. So I hope all is going well in your world. And I just want to take a minute to speak. Our episode is about perception. Today, we're going to talk about the concept of perception and the power of perception. And I need your help. I'm working on a project and I thought maybe you all could start helping me out a little bit. I've been up here pontificating for ages now, and it's, I do, you do, we do. And that's a big thing. So I want you to start pitching in now. Now that we're starting to open you up to that more sensitive side, that more creative, the more passionate, the more emotional side, I thought maybe you could help me. So here's what happened. I was living out in California for a while and I realized that metaverse isn't quite for me. I enjoy my hills of Tennessee. I enjoy my green and I need that environment to thrive. But I was out there for a while and I think it was very good because my perception changed on a lot of things. Like, for example, I was able to work at a mostly Vietnamese high school, which is fascinating because, being in rural Tennessee, you can imagine the diversity situation there, which changes their perception of perhaps something like race, where they don't have a lot of interaction with a lot of diversity. But now we live in this interconnected world where we can do those kinds of things. So the Vietnamese-based high school, really interesting. I was a librarian there. And the food and the families, and there's a thing called family systems. And there's a guy named Jerry Wise who talks about family systems a lot. But I learned about family systems theory and clinical social work. I'm so glad that I had that program so I could download the content that I needed to play. And here's how I kind of perceived this whole thing. So family systems theory extends to the idea of like a family tree. Okay. Now, in the family, on the tree, we need to take a look at scientifically using the scientific method of research, which science teachers, you need to help us here. The scientific method needs to be drilled into us from the get-go, because as a divergent kid who had big thoughts and no way to figure them out, the scientific method was the only thing that made me feel safe. Science made sense. Like, I got it. Math didn't really, but science, you can prove it. It's visual. So science teachers, I wanted to be a science teacher because I wanted to study research. So me being a science teacher and then getting my master's in library is one and the same, because it's all about breaking down the scientific process to do research. Okay, follow? Now, perception. So I see it as we have a problem of where I feel like I'm in a traffic jam. I'm driving down the road in my Honda Civic, of course, and I've modified it in every way possible to have the dog edition, the teacher edition, all these little modifications in my car to make it the super teacher car. And I'm carrying all this stuff home. And I live quite a bit of a drive. And the thing is, I'm on the 5 freeway. Now, I live in a place that has highways. That makes me feel safer. Freeways, oh boy. It's like a free-for-all, I think is how I associate those words. But my word association might need to change. The perception of words, not necessarily people, but just the words we use to describe them. So this is my example. So I'm going down the 5. And I lived down near, in Orange County, down near like the Mission Viejo, Irvine kind of area. Hi, y'all out there. The 5 and the 405 meet, okay? You want to talk about something that you see that will stir anxiety in your heart, deep, deep rooted. So I'm sitting there in my little Honda Civic with Charlie the dog, and I'm like, oh gosh, it's already like 7 lanes just on the 5. And then when 405 connects to it, it's like 15 or some ridiculousness. And there was cars everywhere. It felt like a giant, like coming out of a concert, like out of a Taylor Swift concert, and trying to figure out how to get to your car. You have that same level of confusion where you're like, what? So my perception of this is absolute terror. Fear is driving now, and that is not a good thing. But over time, of course, I got used to driving it, and I just knew that it wasn't that great, but that exposure therapy of going through it every single day until I just wasn't scared anymore was important. So exposure therapy is important. So in family systems, you take a look at the family as a whole concept. So Jerry Wise taught me this. And of course, my training as well. But the YouTubes, which is a wonderful, his YouTube channel is great. There's so many wonderful YouTube channels. We're going to talk about that in our next episode. I'm going to give you some tools and now you can apply that I think now you might appreciate, hopefully after this episode, for its value. And whatever value you find in it, run with it. So I get home, I'm able to relax, and my day is done, right? Well, I was thinking about grandpas. And on the way home, just thinking about my two grandpas, and my mom's side grandpa was in World War II. And I used to like to look at his medals and things, and he got the Purple Heart, and we thank our veterans for their service so much. So I always had a really deep-rooted appreciation for veterans because he would tell me his stories and things and would always take me for donuts at Dunkin' Donuts. So, hey, thanks, Grandpa. Thanks for the donut addiction, maybe. But in any case, I just was thinking about family systems and the role that a grandpa can play. And I've been seeing some people out there, little shining stars in the media, where they have the grandpa vibe and, Umi vibe, any type of thing. And I just really get excited about that because I like at the root of the family system is my perception of masculinity. My perception of masculinity is that men provide such an important role in the sense of stability and grace under fire and how to conduct yourself appropriately in public and you still be a fighter and make good decisions. That's what I see masculinity. Now, unfortunately, we're starting to see that emotions are creeping up. So 5405. The reason why I mention that is because my perception of what I'm looking at, my graphic organizer in reality in front of me with all this traffic, is that I'm seeing two very big concepts coming together in what happens. It's like a social experiment in my brain. Here's what's happening. I am thinking of learning as the 5, okay? So I'm driving down the 5 in my Civic. I would much rather be in a better car, but for now, I'm totally content with what I've got and it's doing just fine, right? It works. It could be improved. Always can be improved. Anything can be improved. But I'm starting a little on the low side, but I'll give it a shot. And you feel like you're in offensive driving, not defensive driving. Like we need that class as well, because I feel like I'm playing a video game at this point and like, please don't let me die to the 80s, always going to die. So certain death. Okay, so I'm on the road of learning on the 5s, for example. But the thing that I think we forget about sometimes is that there's a whole other highway merging. And at certain times of life, that highway starts to merge again, like adolescence, for example, like middle school. We are right there. Let me make this parallel allegory for you, which is important in teaching. We are really good at doing that, teachers, so way to go. But this allegorical teaching of family systems is right here. Now, the family is at home. We want to get to home where the family is, where safety is, right? Safety is everybody's most important thing. From minute one on planet Earth, safety is right there. Somewhere between an inside out when the little, ball is there, little glow ball, to when the baby opens their eyes. In that space, I think is where safety lives. It's not really an emotion. It's more of a concept. So I think it's like the house to which the emotions live is the safety. But at its root, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, safety is most important. So I need to get home to safety to go maybe see my grandpa. Okay. We forget about the other highway merging. But what is the highway? What do I know about the other highway and where does it go? I soon learned pretty quickly living out there that I needed to know very, very clearly which one went where, because I cannot tell you how many multiple highways, freeways, whatever you want to call them, I went on to get places, and I was always late. That was before GPS. But the other highway, what do I know about it? Well, what I know about that highway is that it can take me to Disneyland. Well, both ways can, but this way might be better. So, my perception of highways are decisions, but my perception of highways, even more importantly, emotions. You see, I think of emotions and learning as two converging giant highways. freeways, actually. And at adolescence, they become freeways. I think they were kind of highways before. But at adolescence, with hormones and all this stuff happening, it's like everything becomes congested. Cars are sort of like thoughts. But in middle school, you have two major converging highways where you have emotions now interconverge so much more again with learning. But before, they sort of ran parallel for a while, elementary school, where emotions, of course, we're all emotionally based first. But I think that our perception of people is that we forget that emotions go first. Inside Out 2 was one of the highest grossing films this summer. We all were perfectly well aware, based on box office, that emotions are the ones that determine how we perceive things. Wasn't that kind of a big takeaway from the movie? So we know this. Nobody is, I was stupid, I didn't know that. Yeah, you did. Sure you did. Think of all the learning you know that you just kind of learn by experience. What you learn from dogs doesn't have any words, but you learn lots of values. So the core value of that, and they talk about core values all the time in the movie. But unfortunately, I just want to get home and see my grandpa. But I can't do that in my family system because right now I'm at the convergence of learning and emotion. And unfortunately, when you have 16 lanes of traffic with all these thoughts and emotions and all kinds of things happening in a giant traffic jam, what happens when you sit in a traffic jam too long? Anger, right? But what's the other emotion that happens when you're in a traffic jam and you've got some road rage? Confusion, right? Irritation. It's not fair. All those things. The concept of fairness, I thought it was because I'm a Libra that I'm like, it's not fair. I was born full Libra where pro cons are the same. But that's not it. It may not be because of my neurodivergence that I have a sense of injustice that just won't quit. But I want to ask why and challenge that. And that's what gets me thrown out of doctor's offices when ego gets involved. Because I point out something really obvious and clear that it's like a glaring tantrum of death here from someone who can't handle the challenge, a Bowser. So one of my challenges is to make sure that I don't get taken advantage of, and to have learned that skill in school would be helpful. So we cannot deny the fact that emotions drive our perception and learning. Please make this connection. They are in tandem. They are equally valid. But learning, we value it so much. But yet mental health is now finally starting the wave of being recognized as equally as important as learning. We have to control the perception of the emotion that it triggers when we bring up a concept. Make sure that they have the right emotional connection to the topic that would be appropriate for their learning. Kind of like the broccoli thing. Perception of broccoli to little kids. I didn't want that. It's green. It's in the movie. And discuss, right? Well, change the perception. It's kind of like all these awesome families out there and moms. I think there was a mom cookbook about where you can remix food to make it look like other things, and like veggie burgers and all that kind of stuff. It's like the veggie burger method where you just kind of remix things and present it a different way. So they have to develop a totally new perception. So if you present broccoli to a little kid as a tree, and then we're going to dip it in a cheese moat to water it or something, kind of like turn it into a science lesson, but use cheddar cheese as water or something to make it taste good. And then when they eat it, they associate a positive story with the broccoli, ergo, I don't hate broccoli anymore. But the word isn't needed so much. You don't have to say the word broccoli. You can just say it's a tree. So it's perception. It's not deception, but I think we become so content in being deceived by other people and allowing them to drive our car of emotion that we have to just kind of wake up. So I'm checking you. Remember we talked about being checked? Sometimes it needs to be checked. People need to be checked. Well, I'm checking you. See, it's not that painful. It's just that it's not punishing you. It should never be about that. The perception is that getting checked is that you're being punished. No, you're not. A coach is checking you. You don't feel like when you're playing a sport that if a coach checks you, that's a punishment. It's just like, oh, okay, thanks. But in school, we've gotten so kind of traumatized, and our perception through our emotions is that we're being beaten up, that we don't want to talk anymore. We don't want to offer anything kind of out of the norm because it's not safe anymore. And teachers, gosh, teachers, talk about someone who needs to be rebranded. Folks, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is screaming for help here. These poor people don't have the mask on, and the plane has been crashing for a while. So, as a teacher, I'm sitting there in this traffic jam trying to get to my grandpa, and I realize that as a teacher, where do I fit into the story? What is the perception of the populace as to what I do? And that confusion is where I live a lot. So confusion may also be, an emotion. It definitely is. It's a more complex emotion, but it's the scrambled eggs effect. I want to get home to have scrambled eggs with my grandpa, but unfortunately, in my family system, I value him and I can learn from him. So in a family system, people's perception and mental health play a significant role in the next generation's perception of what to do about it. The next generation is a reaction to one's perception. We know this because we want to instill good morals in kids, so we may have them go to a religious organization, let's say. Okay? So we try to put them on the Jedi path, not the Sith path. But somewhere along the line, my confusion comes in the fact that why don't we remember that Inside Out is making the choices? They are in tandem. So the fact that we are not teaching in middle school where we finally open up our emotions and use critical thinking, like right there, we're right there. Why don't we have mental health and systems theory and sociology and some of these things be a critical part of the curriculum? Kids have to understand their brain in order to do something about it. That was what was confusing to me as a kid all the time. I was like, what? Like, I was so confused constantly because it seemed like the world was filled with nothing but hypocrisy. So I called her Chrissy. She was my emotion. Hypocrisy was totally an emotion. Go deep on the word Chrissy and what you know about that and pop culture knowledge and apply that in whatever way you want, but interesting noodle to go down. So teachers, the perception of teachers, why they need to be rebranded. Y'all, here's a traffic jam like crazy. Think about the perception socially, personally, and your family's perception of what teachers do. Let me point out a few things. When we sit and focus on one thing and just noodle all the way through it, it's pretty amazing what you can learn. So perhaps with our kiddos, teaching them conceptually based allows them the freedom of the creativity to work through the problem scientifically in whatever way they want. We don't squelch kids in science class and say, we're going to experiment, but you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do this. And if you're interested in it, sorry, but we're doing this about this instead. Who cares what it's about? It's about the concept. So in my writing class, I didn't really care what the prompt was. We invent prompts. And next season, we're going to talk about all the tools you can use, like how to get prompts out of kids using mental health. But you can bring it in and weave it into the school. It just as teachers, we didn't have the content knowledge to back up some of these big thoughts that we were questioning this whole time. Because we are sociologists. We see this. We understand the sociology of kids, of schools, of middle school. And that's where I had to do this podcast. Like I absolutely had to do it because it was about passion and anger. Because I'm like, this is wrong. No. This podcast may just be my public temper tantrum and say that the perception of teachers must change. That's the change I want. I want perception to change. And then everything else will change. That's the big deal. Because teachers are seen as what? Okay, let's go to the good. Pro-con list. To the pro, teachers are seen as Mary Poppins. Teachers are seen as the bringer of light and joy and learning and excitement and color and wonder. Awesome. Bing bong. Great. Mrs. Fink. Perfect. Now, it's even hard to talk about. To go to the dark side, it makes me feel very, very uneasy. But you have to do some things called body scanning, where you check your body, check yourself. You check your body to see what feels you have at the moment. My stomach is a little bit nauseous right now, kind of trying to talk about this because the pro list, I felt fine. And then as soon as I said the word con, I'm like, ugh. So think about the associative properties of emotions and words. Okay, so teachers to the con. Here we go. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Be brave, Suze, be brave. Okay, ouch. Talk about swords. Here we go. Okay, so teachers, one, they go to teacher ed school, and I hope I made a good point in this. When they go to teacher ed, people don't actually even give them the consideration to think about what they even learn and that it has value. They seriously think, I've heard this from so many people, people really think that it's some like Hogwarts where maybe you just learn about bulletin boards and how to make kids happy. Do you think there's an art or a methodology to teaching? Like, is there a certain way to do it? And one, a lot of them never even thought about it. And two, once they did and had a minute there, well, I guess there should be. Teachers, if you're really having a cringy moment right now, thank you. Other folks you've taught in your life, I mean, you've had people learn from you, right? You had that transactional exchange of learning with someone in your life. Everybody does. We're all teachers. That's the point. Everybody's a teacher. I have to just pony up my teacher buddies to make an example. But it's time that they be the example. So in a family system, if you think of a school as a system, okay, there's the grammar teacher, and she's so busy talking about what to do with grammar and like, let's eat grandpa, let's eat grandpa, or let's just eat grandpa. They're trying to explain that concept going on. That's why I brought up the grandpa thing. It's about the perception and the punctuation. I associate punctuation with tone of voice. You can say it in two different ways. It means two totally different things, kind of like an inside out with the sarcasm thing. And sarcasm is fueled by emotion. So if you can calm the emotion down, there's less sarcasm. So you want people to be nicer to you, then calm them down first and not be that way. It's that perception. But teachers, if we do the family systems wheel, let's look at that negative. You see, I'm dodging it because it makes me really uncomfortable. So we're going to fight. You're going to watch me fight right now. So here we go. Sure. Let's do this. Roll on. Okay. So teacher ed, we don't learn anything apparently but to me, I saw it as going to medical school. Like I wanted to be the surgeon of teachers. Like I wanted to know every detail about what is going on in this kid's brain exactly. I wanted to be like the neurosurgeon of teachers. I wanted to know everything about why about a kid. That was my modus. So their schooling is pretty much not valued. Then equity for their lives. We see them as kind of a celebrity in our local area. You see them at Walmart and you're like, oh, I am a celebrity or Mr. whatever, coach, whatever, pastor, whatever. But the teacher plays a role of a role model, but in doing so, you're a public figure. So you get a little taste of that just by going to Walmart when people want to come up to you and talk to you, which is awesome. People, the kind of squishy, weird, squishy. So a lot of times they're looking in your cart and seeing what you're buying. And sometimes weird, a little weird, creepy. But I see that they're scanning my cart and judging me and making a perception about who I really am. I've been to a restaurant having a margarita and I don't even drink. Like I was just like, okay, we'll do it. So we were all doing that. So I had a sip of margarita and a parent came up to me and railed me up one side and the other and was like, how dare you be a drunk around as a teacher, in public, you shouldn't have people see you drinking like that. Are you waking up now? Is this some coffee for you? Yeah. I can't even have a margarita on a weekend with some friends because I am still the role. I'm still working in Disneyland when I just want to be off for a little while. Can I be Suzanne and not Miss Swain for 5 seconds? Please, that's really tiring to play that role all the time. I'm not all that I play in the theater production. I'm also a person. Please remember that side. So it's like my emotions get forgotten. That the public perception is so much more of value than what I actually do in my friendships and all these other things. So I'm held to this ridiculous standard of propriety that even a doctor or a surgeon is held to. If you see a doctor or surgeon, worked on you or whatever, out in public, at a restaurant, having a margarita, you'd be like, good for you. Have that drink. Holy cow, wizard. Because you see them as like a wizard. But in this game, what are the teachers? What character are they? It's like little hobbits. All this, capability, but people just perceive them wrong. And so I think it's time to change the perception. I see it happening because now I'm starting to see that people are running for office. People are talking about learning, talking about the importance that their children have. I thought post-COVID, everybody was going to wake up. Teachers, I love that nurses got their due. I thought we were going to get there, but then everybody back to school and everybody forgot about the role of what the teachers did and how we kind of saved a lot of family systems by providing education during COVID when guardians were kind of flipping out and like, please take my kid back. I'm sorry. But we're not babysitters. And that's the other thing, is we're kind of just your babysitter. They learn stuff, but what are they really learning? Now, is it true that I've seen many a teacher who, well, let's just say, wrote something not so interesting on the board in some, slightly not so good color, like yellow, on the board, and talked about the importance of sitting there and answering this on exactly 3 pages with this many words. And the teacher went and sat in the corner and played on her phone. That was out of middle school. That was during my student teaching, and I was appalled. I was so angry I could have thrown something. But I'd sit there, and my sense of hesitation was kicking in, and Hessie and I were trying to keep it together because it was not my place to do that. But I weaseled my way in and started bringing in some stuff I was interested in to talk about because I need to be passionate about it. And wow, someone turned the lights on. I created a classroom culture that was based in interest and kindness and exploration. It changed the entire vibe in a heartbeat. The teacher was the roadblock. So, I mean, out there in the world, I get you. I get that you felt that way because you probably had that teacher. Can you stop a second and remember the fact, think about running 300 8th graders all day. That's what I did. But then I had bus duty in the morning. I also had to plan what I was going to teach about and prepare the mental gymnastics of that. I challenge any Bowser out there who talks to people at rallies or any of these political pro-money powered ego events. I challenge you to sit in front of a stadium full of 8th graders. Do a Taylor Swift. You entertain a bunch of teenagers and they leave on a happy note. You have reached the pinnacle of wizardry, my friend. To Taylor, well done. By using song and dance and all kinds of interesting things like P.T. Barnum, you dazzle them and show them something new and people will change. She gets that. Perception of teachers is that we have all this Taylor Swift, riz, but the thing is that the perception is that we're the kid on the carpet rolls at the dance, sitting on the side and just watching everybody because we don't want, why try if we're not encouraged to do so? But I'm not talking about the students. I'm talking about the teachers first. If the teachers aren't encouraged, engaged, inspired to bring something to the classroom, then we fall. The campaign will fall. Right? So, yes, teachers are great at diversion and pivoting back to the kids because that's what we are there for. We are selfless to a fault. Selfish is not bad, teachers. Selfish just means that you care for yourself also. I'm starting to realize the hardest thing I've ever learned is that I do have to save myself sometimes. I will rabbit hole so hard on teaching that I forget to eat. I forget to sleep. I forget to, all that because that's my rabbit hole. So in my way of saying we're sitting in the traffic jam and everybody's perception is that I'm probably a jerk because I'm trying to weave my way out of this traffic, but I'm trying to be respectful. So all that hypocrisy and confusion, teachers are confused because we don't understand why we're such good people and everybody hates us so much. What did we do? We're Miss Fink. We went to garage sales on weekends and picked out stuffed animals to bring joy to children, and yet we're criminals and they don't like us, and we give our service like the military to America's children. Think of us like a military in a way, like a branch of the military. Except what we do is that, we teach kids, we better our future. Big concept. But honestly, I just want to get home because I'm really tired. Like, I am worn out. Good energy, eustress, eustress, eustress is good. I'm having fun. I am playing gymnastics all day long up there with those kids. And one of the things I love best was being 3 steps ahead and making little jokes that you can get. Much like watching Animaniacs and getting a whole different vibe out of the cartoon. I could play in 2 worlds and it was great. But I had to entertain myself because, I'm sorry, but worksheets aren't working. So why did you have worksheets? Why was the teacher boring? Why? What happened to them? I don't know that we got to the point of not thinking that way. But here's the thing, as a divergent person, that's the first thing I think of. It's like, help, wake up. It's the minutia that I have trouble with. So that's where we need to pair and have a symbiotic relationship with more neurotypically designed people, where they might be like, hey, we're just doing worksheets and this teacher stinks, whatever. And they say hateful, they throw out nasty words that mean hateful things. That's a Bowser technique. But we don't throw enough good words. Well, if anyone needs some good words thrown at them to rebrand them societally, sociologically, emotionally, for their mental health, we don't protect teachers' mental health at all. I can tell you that 100% truth because I have the lived experience to tell you. And I've worked in various positions, lots of them throughout a school system. In the family system, I've tried it all. I drank the Kool-Aid of every single job there was, and I can tell you the same thing happened every single time. So I kept trying more jobs to be like, prove me wrong, prove me wrong. Nope. Same thing. So I asked the mental health people when I was in clinical social work, I'm like, what do you think of teachers? Like, what do they do? And so I was always sitting there fighting for teachers, and trying to stick up for them. I'm like, so what do we do? Teachers aren't really thinking about kids' mental health. I'm sitting there like growling. And there's where my anger starts to come in. Protest a lot bear has been activated, and she is putting on her bandana of death to rage. And I'm like, we make a difference. What do we make? We make a difference. Most people, what do you make? You think money, because that's apparently what most people value. I never understood that immediate association. What do you make? A difference? Duh. Because I don't value money. I really don't. I have no money. I'm broke. But I don't care. I'm like, okay, I'll work it out. It's just another puzzle in the great sequence of life. In fact, in some ways, it's kind of fun to be industrious and to live on a very small budget because that's all I've ever known. I've never had the financial backing as a teacher and the equity to have it any other way. I don't have any other option besides my civic. If I had another option, that'd be awesome. So that's where I'm begging corporate America, if you're listening. You want a great charitable type of thing? Subaru? Start a charity for teachers. Give us cars or whatever. Not just Subaru, but other, because you just got to have the dog edition, create the teacher and mom edition. Because a lot of teachers are moms. So, but think about us as a player in the game. Think about Dumbledore. Teachers are the Dumbledore, right? Dumbledore knows a whole lot of things that Harry and the kids don't know. And they accept that. Kids accept that. Kids accept the hierarchy. Kids look up to teachers like celebrities. But then by the time people become adults, they may have been so traumatized by one teacher, perhaps, that suddenly they don't like them anymore. Well, now the Bowserville political system has gotten so crazy that, we're now actively going after on the offense to these folks, the Care Bears. Yeah, the teachers, all the Care Bears, the Care Bears and Care Bear cousins. Now it's like we have pitchforks against the Care Bears. Talk about confusion, right? They're in the middle of a flaming tantrum of death, and I'm like, I'm just Braveheart Lion here. That's all I'm trying to play when I go to school. Rebranding. But physically too, people out in the corporate America, they have the money to, brand themselves physically a little bit. When the last time, teachers, you went and had a haircut? Curl up and die, I've been throwing those in there all this time. Some glitter for you, I'm sure you've noticed. Suggesting that why don't we start, doing the Oprah method to teachers? Think about what we can do with $5. Think of what we can do with a car. Think about what we could do with $100,000. To you guys, it's nothing. We all know you make way more money than most of the average population. So how much money do you need? Like, what is it? Does it hug you? Like, money is a tool. Wake up. You went to school too. This is your teacher telling you that, might be time to think about your highways and what's happening here. And are you the problem? It's not you as a person. You're fine. You're awesome. You're amazing. You've done amazing things in life. You're a CEO or whatever. Good for you. I'm really proud of you for that. That's amazing. And if someone tried to tell you that you couldn't do that and that's why you're there now, awesome. You used the fuel correctly. But let me check you. People are human and they have capacity for love. You have a family system in your organization. You're the head of the family, but you haven't asked the kids how school went. So what happens? You get sad. You feel forlorn. You feel like the NBC Nightly News is more important than you are. So why try? It's not learned helplessness. It's just learned, giving up. So what do you think teachers are going through? We're like level 16 of this. Because especially middle school teachers, I know it with one question. When I go out in public and I would tell people that I taught 8th grade, they would ask me, why? I always saw why as a great word, an exploratory type positive word. Why? That version of why is the only time I've ever been disappointed in why. Because people look at me with disdain and pity over being an 8th grade teacher. Taylor Swift, 314-year-old squirrely folk with hormones. But we recognize that mental health goes right on along with learning at that age because we condemn teachers for teaching at 8. There's a loop for you. I'm scrambling your eggs here, folks. Getting ready for breakfast time. The bacon's coming. The thing is that we know all this. So why isn't it in neon? Because it's been that way for me for a long time. I just happen to have the blessing of being able to express what I'm seeing. A lot of us divergent folk can't do that, at least not very easily. So we need help to understand these big concepts from elementary school and learn how to verbalize them. So elementary people, I need you to help us try to verbalize. Give us lots of words when we're little. Big words, fun words. Make it like toys. Make words toys. And if we can learn to play with our toys successfully, then by the time we get to middle school, we can learn to process them and then spin them around and almost like someone out in front of a building, with a cool spinny. In middle school, you can learn to do that sort of stuff. Make it awesome. We just build. We forgot that learning is about building. Love can build a bridge. We're building a bridge into adulthood. And we didn't build the whole bridge. But unfortunately, the tour guide, we just took them out in the backyard and kicked their tail. And yet we expect them to go to work every day. Dumbledore and go back to Dumbledore. Okay, did you think about Dumbledore in the sense of what did he eat? Did he sleep? Was he happy? What was his fuel in life? It's like we can even give celebrities that benefit. Like we think about what's their day like, because that's fun, because it's like they live in a whole other alternate universe. And whenever you get to meet a celebrity, it's like, but teachers, if we see them as kind of kid celebrities, by the time you're an adult, we're completely forgotten about. We are the bing bong. Teachers are bing bong, folks. Teachers are the bing bong. We're the ones that dress up crazy every day and, turn ourselves into sadness from inside out. Or my brother who wears a dashiki and turns himself into Captain Kwanzaa because he felt that Kwanzaa deserved a superhero. Because he was that caring. But yet the perception of male teachers is that they're in some, and I don't even want to say what they think they're doing, because that is so far from the truth. We love children like disruptors. And I brought up the concept of how would we see some of these people like Mr. Rogers in today's mindset, in today's sort of social family system. It's a little scary to think that Mr. Rogers may not be liked so well for wanting to work with pre-K kids, which means that masculinity has altered and the good guy isn't the hero anymore. Yikes. So those of you who have something to do about that, just go out there and be the really good Tom Hanksy type of guy. Folksy and fun and fixes stuff and is that the vision of masculinity that we all need. Especially for those middle schoolers out there who are trying to develop their perception of life. But we're giving them really bad examples. Bowsers. We keep throwing Bowsers at them like, this is what you want to be. Okay. So then they grow up to value money, power, and ego. And yeah, they may have lots of money and can do all that, but what kind of person are they? I think as parents, we all just kind of want our kids to be happy and to contribute to society. But are we actually just teaching our kids that you just want to be rich and have power? So money, power, and ego to teachers, we have no value in that. We don't get paid anything, so why would we value money? Power, well, the only power we wield is just to help kids to the better. It's in the dark zone that power becomes complicated, like the mafia or what have you, which talk about a family system. We don't know the world of the good so well. We have some positive spin. We don't know how to handle that. Just like a lot of people can't handle a really sincere compliment anymore. They just freak out, like the cafeteria folk. They just were like, what? We need to get back to baseline. Like, okay, are you awake now? Because you're there. Unless you have sociopathy or true, a very serious mental health condition that is not really going to be alleviated by simply discussion. Maybe chemistry needs to be involved and someone way more qualified than me. I respect your professionalism in what you do, and I'll stay in my lane. I'm just a classroom teacher. I'm not a psychiatrist. But I do have a degree in mental health. And I can say I know the signs. And I don't want to get it so far to where we're now dealing with things like school shootings. That is a cry for help. That's the weird kid that people thought, the word weird. There is good weird, We keep talking about bad weird lately, and it's very effective, but good weird is also equally as effective. But maybe if that kid had another option, maybe an art school or somewhere to get their emotions out, because the arts do that. I see it. I've made this synthesis by seeing both worlds in therapy, and that's the key. Make mental health just woven in like you're just merging on a highway. And the more you do it, that exposure therapy of it all, the more people normalize it, and it's going to take a minute. But it'll happen. So maybe by the time those middle schoolers, if we try to just change things, it doesn't cost anything. It's just a mind switch, perception switch. Like I said, teachers we don't need to do anything. Like when we create a issue to solve, it's always cheap. Because usually we're paying for the field trip. Like the time I paid for my entire class to go to the zoo when I taught smaller middle schoolers. Went to the zoo, to make the field trip work, I had to pay out of my own pocket. So I paid over $1,000. Yeah, that was pretty much my whole paycheck, to let my kids go to the zoo. And then I had a chaperone who wanted to go. And I was like, wow, single mom, that's great. Let's do something. Let's let you get out of the house. I'd already helped with, I paid an electric bill out of my own pocket. I had helped with holiday gifts. I've been helping this family, trying to get them ahead because I really believed in this family. We get to the zoo, and I pay for mom and the little sister to come out of pre-K and come along to the zoo, and then, of course, the kiddo. And we get there, and first of all, mom ends taking some medication on the bus and starts yelling at people from inside of the bus or in the Nashville traffic. Oh, great. Here we go. And I'm like, oh my gosh. No good deed goes unpunished. So we get there, and by then she's completely corked on whatever she took. And there's a little bridge when you walk in the zoo there. Well, she climbs on the bridge. Talk about love can build a bridge. Well, there's the other side. She starts yelling at one of the birds and falls into the water. I try really hard not to laugh because that's a word. But of course, then I snap out, snap out of it. and Moonstruck. I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And so, this mom is kind of a bit of a dumpster fire, unfortunately. She clearly needs some assistance in life. Cry for help. But I'm sorry, I was so mad because then we got her out and went through that whole fiasco. I redivided up the kids, sent them along with different teachers and chaperones, and tried to, put out the fire. And then we walk over. I'm like, all right, why don't you all go get something to eat? Just chill out and you all can go wander around the zoo. I'll check back in with you, whatever. Do you need money for food or anything? And so I was trying to think, how much money do I have in my pocket here? I don't know. That is my lunch money after all, but wouldn't be the first time. Okay. So I was like, all right, I got $10 on me. All right. Yeah. Do you need money for lunch? She's like, well, maybe, but no, I think we'll be all right. So I was like, okay. I turn around and mom's walking into the gift shop and pulls out this giant money burrito and starts giving the kids $100 each. And so the kids get back on the bus with giant bags of toys and all kinds of stuff, where the other kids are only allowed to have $10. So now I'm in trouble with all my other kids. It's like a mutiny as to why they have bags of stuff. So I had to lie, which breaks trust. And lying to kids is the worst thing that I ever can do. I hate lying to children. I loathe it. So what do? Hesitation is a big emotion for teachers. What do you do? But unfortunately, no one's really considered the perception of where I stand in the whole thing. Mom didn't give a rip about anything when it came to money. She just thought the government paid for it. No. I ended up giving another kid my $10 because he didn't have money. Did I eat that day? No. Did I even get to go to the bathroom that day? No. Teachers can hold their bladders for 8 hours. Middle school teachers, we are camels. It's like part of the military training, like Navy SEALs. There are many a day when I don't actually get to go to the restroom. I go in the morning before I even go to work, and then when I get home. Because I haven't had time. I haven't had time to eat. I haven't had time to do anything. And planning period is a myth because grading papers during planning period, if you are one of those divergent-y kind of people, you've been sparked in a million different ways throughout your day and are adjusting your day accordingly. And so the stress and anxiety of processing all of that and weaving that into the rest of the day, how am I supposed to sit there and grade 300 essays? So now in the future, I've known that I've had to start making life a little easier for myself and change my own perception of teaching to be like, yeah, I'm going to use AI and I'm going to teach the kids to use technology because me sitting here grading 300 essays for 17 hours or whatever it takes and having to fall asleep in my own classroom because I am grading for so long. I am so exhausted. I'm running on empty. I'm living on espresso. That's a crazy drain. So this is bad when that's your leader. So I'd like you to think about your perception of teachers and think about the perception of the players in your game. If you want to play wizard's chess, you've got to look at the wizard first. Right? So those of you in the marketing world, teaching is all about marketing as well. I think marketing is fascinating. I love kind of guessing what the public is going to do. And I used to think I was psychic or something, but no, I just notice things, notice changes and shifts in personal behaviors socially. I think of things as a system. So if we can just try to think of as schools as a system, and if you want to help your kids, you got to look to the teacher. Look at Dumbledore. You want a Dumbledore or whatever character would represent the super teacher for you, but you want a superhero, essentially. Someone who's divergent, who has superhero qualities and can do things nobody else can do, but yet they may be in a rabbit hole of teaching because they love it so much and care so much for the kids that they've forgotten to eat, sleep, and everything else along the way and have the self-care. We don't know what self-care is. We haven't had a haircut in forever. We cut our own hair, probably with scissors in our classroom. Most of us who really are passionate about what we do. So I challenge all of you at the end of this podcast to check in on your teachers. They're probably not very good at asking for help. So please help me help them. Check in on your local teacher. Adopt a local teacher. Because in the arms of an angel, I'm not going to go Sarah McLachlan, I promise. Promise. But go check in on your people and, go see what's up with Mrs. Fink or whoever that represents to you. Send them a card, give them a call. Just spend some time thinking about your teacher at least. Send some good vibes their way. But check in on your people. They meant something in your life, but abandoning them and throwing them down the chasm is not what we do to Bing Bong. Bing Bong makes a comeback, and unfortunately, these days, Inside Out 2 told us that Bing Bong kind of comes back as anxiety. Because when you don't have Bing Bong anymore, that's kind of where you're going. But imagine if Bing Bong stuck around in middle school and Inside Out 2. I think they're the same character, but maybe they're not. But maybe anxiety is the result of losing Bing Bong and grief. Like grieving over the loss of their imagination. Noodle on that, y'all. We'll see you next time.